crash course video on all things need to know Othello. Let's get started. William Shakespeare's Othello is a dramatic tragedy. Dramatic because it is written and performed as a play, and a tragedy because it terminates in about 3, 4, maybe 5 of the largest characters dying. Entirely unfamiliar with the play? The next 5 minutes are going to take you on a wild ride. The play opens with Iago and Roderigo, 2 friends, making a simple deal. Roderigo wants Desdemona. Iago promises his pal he will get Desdemona for him. But Desdemona's already married to this guy named Othello, who Iago works for. So in order to get Desdemona away from Othello, and so Roderigo can have his girl, and so Iago can get the position he wanted, he needs to remove a man named Cassio from the lieutenant position and from the entire picture altogether. Iago goes on, framing in any and every person, lying to Othello's face, despite Othello trusting him entirely. So Iago gets Cassio drunk, and conveniently Othello enters at the same time, seeing a fight break out with Cassio stripping him immediately of his lieutenancy. Now Cassio's mad because he has no position, so Iago's like, hey, you want your position back? You gotta get close to Othello's wife, Desdemona. What he doesn't know is Iago wants the position too. Shh. So Cassio and Desdemona meet up and talk, but Othello comes in, so Cassio gets out, which Iago convinces Othello to seem like Cassio was flirting with her, and that's why he had to leave. And oh boy, then there's whole thing with the handkerchief, and really it's just fake evidence, blah blah. Othello gets convinced of it, giving Iago the position he wanted in the first place. Othello gets so pissed off at Desdemona, he hits her, and he believes absolutely no one besides Iago, who's really the only one lying. Then he tells Iago he needs to kill Cassio so he can have his wife back. So Iago solicits Roderigo for help, and they try and fail to kill him, getting himself stabbed in return. Othello hears Cassio yelling, assuming he's dead, so he goes to kill his own wife. Finally, all the truth comes out, and Othello tried to kill Iago, and Iago ends up killing his wife Emilia in return, because Emilia's the only one who told the truth. Roderigo ends up getting nothing, and Iago's taken away to be killed. And Othello kills himself and his wife, even though he still loves her. So now that I told you everything you needed to know about the plot, let's analyze it. Yay, analysis! So the reason for why you were or are probably very confused with the plot was there's so many characters and events in between one simple action of Iago getting the position he wants. So whose fault is that? His own. The man has approximately 50,000 words spoken throughout the play, yet his actual physical actions tally to about 4. So why is Iago able to survive the entirety of this play with practically solely words? Words that are mostly false. Well, there's 2 reasons. 1, no one else is telling the truth, so no one else knows if he's right or wrong because there's only one side of the story. Number 2, the few actions that he does make support his words. So what we need to figure out is, do actions really speak louder than words? But first of all, actions don't really speak, so first of all, we know that's got to be wrong. But rather, is sight a greater sense than hearing? A sound is made up of vibrations, which is merely an object moving back and forth many, many times, making movements very, very quickly, which also makes millions of actions in an extremely short amount of time. So in the time it takes Iago to say 1 minute of his monologue, he's made about 15,000 revolutions, depending on his pitch. Whereas in that minute, he could likely only complete about 50 push-ups, run about 1/10 of a mile, or kill a couple people. But with 1 minute of speaking, I've made 15,000 actions, something nearly impossible to do with physical movements or actions other than speaking. So the word is more abundant with actions than a physical action. But one action can be more impactful than the word spoken. For example, in the time I've been talking to you, all I've done is said words, which are just syllables that I've put together in my brain. In the same amount of time, I could have killed someone or given birth, one never knows, and clearly giving birth or killing someone is more impactful than a bunch of syllables I've just put together. My buddy Hank Green, who usually is making these crash course videos, says the
cortex interprets all those signals and also plugs them into stored memories and experiences so it can finally say, oh, that's a chickadee, or a knock at the door, or the slow burn of an 80s saxophone solo, or whatever. So
Othello trusts Iago, perhaps, so deeply because he's connecting what Iago says, what Othello hears, from the Iago he's always known, who's a truthful and loyal friend. Also thanks to Hank Green, we know that words all go through the same pathway in the ear, same pathway from person to person, traveling from the pinna to the drum, into the tympanic cavity, into the cochlea, along the auditory pathway, landing finally in the cerebral cortex. The only true place where there is room for interpretation of sounds is in the memory, remembering, is that what he really said? Or am I just remembering that because that's what I want to hear? In many cases, words provide a plethora of room for interpretation, basically how analysis was born. But in Iago's case, in the case we're concerned with, there's either heard or unheard, right or wrong, true or false. With many words, there's room for interpretation, but through speech, the one being spoken to either hears it or he doesn't. There's no room there. Get it? On the flip side of words, we have actions, which are seen through our eyes. Our eyes create optical illusions. There's more room for interpretation in Iago's case. There's more room for fooling to occur. The pupils physically open and close, get larger and smaller, affecting how much we see. So if Iago made actions instead of words, they would be seen differently from person to person, simply dependent on how largely their pupils are open. See? So the guy's way smarter than you think. He may have subconsciously thought, oh, well, my words are easier to use because I don't have to physically do anything to show them. It's all a mental game whether or not these people trust my words. But perhaps what he did or did not realize, depending on his scientific knowledge, is that it's much easier for our eyes to trick us, to play games, and to see things differently depending on our cornea's capability. Hence why this lovely dress was seen as black and blue by some and white and gold by others. It's black and blue, by the way. Iago's actions may be seen as black and blue and hurtful to some, or as white and gold and truthful to others. But it is, at the end of the day, not entirely dependent on the eyes or the ears to decide which is more powerful, words or actions. Because both are processed in the same relative location in the brain, the cerebral cortex. So both actions and words get processed in the brain in the same fashion, in the same location. So basically, the brain treats them exactly the same. If words are powerful enough to any one individual, they'll be remembered. And if actions are powerful enough to any one individual, they'll also be remembered. Both are only remembered if the individual receiving them allows them to be. But oftentimes, repetition is what correlates with memory. So Iago's constant use of words over actions suggests he's relying on the fact that he uses words so much more than actions that his lack of actions are trivial in proportion to his words, and is the reason for why we are able to remember things so vividly. Like Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, "I have a dream." He repeated many things over and over, which made an impact. But one action is able to do the same thing, hence why we remember something as fatal as the Sandy Hook shooting. So how would the story have varied if Iago abused the privilege of actions, much like he did with words? Actions and words are merely mediums through which we convey our feelings and emotions. The only issue is words contain 15,000 times the amount of actions that one physical action does. In the play, the misuse of words leads to the misuse of actions. Or, as my buddy Hank Green says,
a society in which bold-faced lying goes completely unchecked leads to total anarchy.
Makes sense why the end of this novel ends in stabbing after killing as a result of Iago's misuse of words. That's a whole nother video. So after all that, do actions really act or speak louder than words? In Iago's case, no. But in Adam Lanza's case, yes. So what conclusion have we really come to? None really, but I know you need some closure. So the brain has to be smart enough to decipher between truthful actions and truthful words, to decide which one is more powerful. Because both end up going to the brain, so that's really where the decisions get made. That's why Amelia can't handle that her husband abuses words so often. She's just the first one in the play who has the brain to decipher his words are speaking way too loud, and the actions need a little bit of a microphone. If only that was possible. Thanks for visiting me on this episode of Crash Course, and I'll see you next time.